The Cowboys open up the 2023 NFL season on the road in the division against the G-Men on Sunday Night Football. Pregame begins at 4 o'clock right here on the Dallas Cowboys Radio Network, 105.3 The Fan with Eric Chiafalo and Brian Broaddus. It is football time in Texas as the Dallas Cowboys look to build upon what was a terrific year last year, of course, ending in the divisional round against the San Francisco 49ers for the second year in a row. But this game, Reg, against a New York Giant football team, got a terrific front four led by Dexter Lawrence, improved offensively at the tight end position by acquiring Darren Waller from the Las Vegas Raiders, Saquon Barkley back on a one-year deal to be the running back for this team, Daniel Jones, the newest $40 million man there. How do you see this game going between the Cowboys and the Giants on Sunday night?
It's going to be an interesting test, right? We anticipate the Cowboys offensive line to be whole if, maybe they had a few nicks and bruises we talked about earlier with John Machota. You had Tyron Smith with a, sprained ankle was the term, but it was mild, or actually was mild the word that we used
Minor.
there?
Mm-hmm.
Minor, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to get the right wording there. And then also Tyler Smith has been, seen working with rehab coordinator Britt Brown when it comes to his hamstring. Those guys should play. There's a lot of continuity on this Cowboys team. There is so very much continuity on this Cowboys team. And yes, there's some continuity for the Giants, but when you talk about a team that played at a very high level for a majority of the season in the Dallas Cowboys, the continuity matters. It's the reason why we bring this up in any facet of football, the number of returning starters, the ways in which there have been some cohesion and there's that, chemistry and camaraderie. I think that week one is one of those situations and one of those places where that gets demonstrated. Coming out and having a rapport that allows you to hit the ground running. I think that's going to be huge for the Cowboys. Now, offensively, it's going to be a little interesting because we've had a lot of conversations about the way that the offense is shifting, how much is shifting, 70%, 30%, all those things. But I do feel confident in this Cowboys team because I've seen them play at a high level. And that level that I've seen them play at with most of these players is higher than anything I saw from the Giants last season, right? So just from that place, I could start there and say, I have an expectation that the Cowboys come out and play to a higher level than the New York Giants to start with, baseline.
I see the Cowboys winning this game, and I see them doing it in a number of different ways. And for me, it starts on the defensive side of the football.
Absolutely.
Because Daniel Jones doesn't do well under duress. And what the Cowboys were able to do last year in getting after Daniel Jones, you think about the Monday night game where DeMarcus Lawrence had 3 sacks. In that game, Micah Parsons had 3 sacks against the New York Giants over the couple of games that they played last year as well. The defense is going to set the tone for me in this game.
Sure.
And how Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, and how they get after the offense of the Giants, specifically Saquon Barkley, and their ability to stop the run. Saquon Barkley, for as good and talented of a player as he is, has had trouble in his career against the Dallas Cowboys, and their ability to ensure that they are stopping the run, because I believe that's where it starts for the Cowboys on defense. Containing Saquon Barkley, forcing Daniel Jones to be the guy that beats you, and try to use guys like Darren Waller and others to try and beat you on the outside, where I still feel good about this Cowboys secondary with Trayvon Diggs, with Stephon Gilmore, which I'm extremely excited about to watch on Sunday night. The Cowboys win this game in my mind because the defense is going to be the thing that gets after Daniel Jones, more specifically the pass rush with Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, and others, and the depth of that defense line, which we've lauded throughout the course of this offseason.
Absolutely. And I guess it's probably telling that, I immediately jumped to the offense because that felt like the defense felt like it was a known commodity.
Sure.
But I'm glad that you made it, you said it because it needs to be said, right? That the defense is the tip of the spear on this team now, right? We've seen the way that they've invested in it. You talked about Stephon Gilmore, the way that multiple safeties have been paid in this offseason. They have made this a priority on this team, and they used quite literally the highest draft capital possible in this previous offseason to bolster a defensive liability, so to say, right? In making sure they added Mozzie Smith at defensive and nose tackle to try and help shore up that run stopping, and hopefully he will develop that pass rushing ability as well. But no, this is something that they, as a team, have made a priority, and it's for good reason. We saw this defensive line be incredible and go after the quarterback, and that's going to be necessary when you talk about quarterbacks run this thing, man. And if this team is going to be able to do anything, the Giants that is, they're going to need Daniel Jones to be on his best behavior. It's really been a tale of two Daniel Joneses for the Giants. The Daniel Jones that I believe is more likely to be the real one, and the one that we saw last year, and it's going to be incumbent upon Micah. It's going to be incumbent upon Osa, DeMarcus Lawrence, Jonathan Hankins. I can name, there's so many of those dudes, Sam Williams, all those guys.
Yeah.
To test out and see how real is it. Now, I'm interested in asking, because you mentioned Saquon, you mentioned some of these other guys. You didn't mention maybe one of the guys that I have a little bit of not legitimate concern for, but a guy that I'm looking towards for this Giants team to maybe be a playmaker, and that they are looking to be a playmaker, and that's Darren Waller, the tight end that they added. How do you see it going with him? Because I'm fairly comfortable knowing this Cowboys defense, but that is a playmaker, and anytime you go up against another team, you circle numbers and say that is a playmaker that we have to account for, and I believe Darren Waller is one of those.
And I think that's the beauty of this Cowboys defense, is that they have playmakers at all three levels, and you go to the secondary when it comes to defensing Darren Waller. I love the matchup of Jaron Kearse dealing with Darren Waller, a physical guy that can play in coverage, and is a guy that I believe will give Darren Waller problems, even with the athleticism that Waller presents, at the tight end position. So that's where I think my confidence goes to with this team. Is you talked about the offensive side, the defense, and what they can do on all three levels, and giving, yes, Darius Slayton they've got there, Hodges, Jalen Hyatt, the rookie out of Tennessee, with some of the skill guys that they have. The Cowboys match up, I think, extremely well on all three levels, and even with Darren Waller and what he presents with his pass-catching ability, his athleticism, able to get out in the open field, Jaron Kearse in this safety group, I think, will be able to be up to the task when it handles this game. And when I start thinking about X factors for this game as well, the biggest one that comes to me, and I'll go to the offensive side, for me, it's going to be Tony Pollard in this offensive line. Tony Pollard, of course, coming off a career year with touchdowns, touches, rushing yards. If this offensive line is mostly healthy, and we're thinking about obviously Tyron Smith and Tyler Smith, which you talked about in terms of the injuries that they're dealing with, how they set the tone from a physicality standpoint, running the football and making things easy for a Mike McCarthy called offense for Dak Prescott. I'm excited to see Tony Pollard get after the front four of the New York Giants. That's very, very good. We talked about guys like Ashawn Robinson, Dexter Lawrence, and others. Leonard Williams, of course, along the defensive line as well. The trenches, I think, will be huge and an X factor for this game, and how they're able to help Tony Pollard and this running game get going to help have some ball control against this Giants defense. I think that's one of my X factors going into this game on Sunday night.
Yeah, man, I have no real concerns when it comes to this Giants team in a real way, right? I know that they just added Isaiah Simmons. Xavier McKinney is a solid safety. But when we start talking about safeties, I'm really excited to see what Jake Ferguson does.
Woo!
Because one thing we know about West Coast inspired offenses, which this one is going to be, the ball is going to get out quick. They're going to try and get guys in space. Ferguson is an upgrade on Dalton Schultz in that he has the athleticism. He turns, he burns, he goes quickly, right? He takes things and tries to get yards in space. CeeDee Lamb, we saw a lot of that, getting yards in space and doing those types of things. I think that those are going to be the things that I anticipate from the offense, and I think they should be able to move up and down on the field fairly well. I know there's folks that are saying that, hey man, you might want to take the under on this. I'm not so certain, although I haven't looked at the over under, so I probably should actually look at that number. But I feel confident in the Cowboys' ability to move the ball, and I think that they should be able to win this one fairly well.
And you mentioned it a little bit. The secondary for this Giants team can be had. You've got two rookie corners on the outside for the Giants, and I feel good about my all-pro wide receiver in CeeDee Lamb and a guy in Brandon Cooks, highly productive 1,000-yard receiving seasons in his career, to be able to cook against that secondary of the New York Giants. I think that's going to be another huge aspect of this, and watching how Dak Prescott is the maestro of this Texas Coast offense that we've been talking about so much throughout this offseason. I think Brandon Cooks and CeeDee Lamb have a real chance to be able to get after the secondary for the New York Giants. The number real quick is 28.4 in the last two seasons. No team has averaged more points per game with their starting quarterback than the Dallas Cowboys. Since 2021, the Cowboys are scoring 28.4 points per game when one Rain Dakota Prescott is under center for this Cowboys team. Kickoff at 7:20 on the Dallas Cowboys Radio Network, 105 through the Fan. G-Men host America's team on 105 through the Fan.